Y'all, I recently watched a video from Annette Reader, the biblical nutritionist, about a recent study that came out last year that actually shows that oats are toxic. And I was floored. But there's hope. I'm actually going to tell you all about this study and also tips and tricks that I have for you about how to avoid the toxicity that we now have in our oats and oat products without completely having to throw out your oats altogether. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. I teach you all about milling whole grains, baking bread, and more. So in case you didn't know, I love Annette Reader and everything that she puts out. She is the biblical nutritionist here on YouTube. And I recently did see a video about a study that came out by the Environmental Working Group about a chemical that we now have on oats. They have recently tested it and found that many of our oat products that you find in the store has been contaminated with this toxic chemical. And no, it's not glyphosate. It's another chemical that we now have to be concerned about. So I'm actually going to break down this study that was done last year for you guys. This full study will be linked in the description box below if you want to check it out yourself. And I will not leave you in despair because I will be sharing with y'all what we can do about this. Okay, so first of all, what is the study? The study was done by the Environmental Working Group, also known as EWG, you're probably more familiar with. And what they did is they took 14 common and popular oat type products from the grocery stores. They sent it to another lab to test. And what they were testing for is this chemical known as chlormequat, which I know kind of sounds like loquats and kumquats, but it's not a fruit. It is a chemical. Okay, so what is chlormequat and why is it bad? So first of all, this chemical is typically used in oats, but also other grains and foods, predominantly because all that it does is it kind of stunts the development of the crop, so that way it doesn't bend over when it grows, thus making it easier for harvesting. That's it. It actually came on the scene in 1962 and for 50 years has not been allowed to be used or even detected on any of our food here in the United States. So for 50 years, we didn't really have to worry about it, but unfortunately, we kind of have to worry about it now because there are companies out there that are kind of bypassing this, and regulations have changed as well. We'll discuss more about that later, but just know that studies have been done on animals. No studies have been done on human beings to see how this chemical affects us, but at least on the many different animal studies that have been done, and it has been on rats, mice, pigs, various animals. Basically, it is shown to cause a host of reproductive issues, and the young babies and children are especially prone to this because it can really stunt growth production. It can also be harmful while pregnant. It can also cause issues to the nervous system. But bottom line, the main concern is certainly for children and babies, or just whenever you're growing up. That's where the concern lies. But as adults, we also don't want it either because, again, we can pass it on to our offspring. And it has been shown to just cause other health issues, such as messing with our metabolism, decreasing testosterone production, and more. So based on these type of studies, again, no human studies have been done, but just based on the multiple animal studies that have been done by the EWG, they basically recommend that a daily dose should be no more than 30 parts per billion of chlormequat, which, to give you a visual reference of that, that's basically equal to one blade of grass in an entire football field. So not that much, especially when you contrast that their daily recommendation of not exceeding for glyphosate is actually 160 parts per billion. So it's even way less for chlormequat than it is for glyphosate, which is also something that I want to avoid like the plague. So here is what has changed and why we need to be more aware of this when it comes to our food. Because like I said earlier, chlormequat has been around since 1962, but for 50 years, pretty much, it was only allowed to be used on ornamental plants, none of our food meant for consumption, and it wasn't even allowed to be detected on any of the food sold in the United States. Unfortunately, that all changed during the Trump administration in 2018. In 2018, companies petitioned the EPA to allow chlormequat to at least be detected on food sold in the United States. And the EPA in 2018 said, all right, fine, it can be detected on foods that is sold in the United States up to 15,000 parts per billion. Again, the EWG recommends no more than 30 parts per billion. In 2018, the EPA now allows 15,000 parts per billion. And in 2020, companies petitioned for that to be increased. And so now the allowable amount is now 40,000 parts per billion, contrast to 30 parts per billion that the EWG recommends not to exceed on a daily basis. The reason for the increase in 2020 is because they wanted to allow Canadian grains to come in, and Canadian levels are higher than those 15,000 parts per billion. And so they went ahead and increased it so they could do that. And that's overall why they petitioned, why chemical companies did petition for this to be allowed, because chemical companies such as Taminco, which is a US producer of chlormequat, they petitioned the EPA to allow this so they could sell more of their chemicals. And it's still not allowed for US farmers to use this on food, but this at least allowed them to sell it to overseas farmers, to our Canadian neighbor farmers, and also to open up the market where, hey, you can send your grains to the United States and it'll be fine. So unfortunately, this is predominantly found in oats, but it also can be used in wheat and barley as well. Unfortunately, chemical companies like Taminco are not stopping there. In 2019, they did file a petition to the EPA where they're wanting to petition to allow US farmers to use chlormequat on their own crops here. Again, right now, it's not allowed. It's only for ornamental plants, not any of our food, but they're wanting to change that. As of right now, it has not been changed, but who knows? Okay, so let's talk about the actual study that was done by the EWG and published in 2023. So what they did is they went out to just stores, grocery stores here in the United States, and they took 13 very popular products that are predominantly oat-based or grain wheat-based in the United States, 13 conventional foods, and 1 organic food. And they sent this to a lab in California and had it tested for chlormequat. And here are the results. As you can see on this chart, what shocked me was that Quaker old-fashioned oats, something that most people would actually consider to be a health food. We consider, and I agree, that oats are very beneficial to us. So many people are buying this thinking that it's perfectly healthy and good for us. But as you can see on this chart here, that Quaker old-fashioned oats came in at the highest at 291 parts per billion. As a reminder, the EWG recommends no more than 30 parts per billion. So this is a little over a 900% increase over what the EWG recommends. And then as you can see, after that, most others came over 100 parts per billion. The only product that didn't have any was Kellogg's Special K fruit and yogurt, which does contain oats and wheat and I think barley as well, but also contains corn syrup and genetically modified ingredients. So wouldn't recommend it, but they at least came in at no chlormequat found. They did test 1 organic granola product, and that also came in with no chlormequat found. Now that we have this information, what do we do besides despair that once again, chemical companies and government has stepped in and seems to ruin our food supply? But before we get into that, let me know in the comments below what you think of this. Were you aware of this? Do you consume oats? Where do you buy it? And also, if you're learning something new, then be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel for all whole grain goodness. And of course, hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos as well. Okay, so what can we do about this? Number one is I would suggest not buying Quaker anymore, because as you can see on that chart that I showed of the study, there were several Quaker products that all were ranking high. So I kind of would recommend to stay away from Quaker, but that's not the only brand. There are other things to consider. The second thing is for oats, for wheat, for barley, for those type of grains, source your grains that are grown in the United States, at least for now, because for now, farmers are not allowed to use chlormequat. So if it is grown in the US, whether it is conventional or organic, you should be safe. But I will say this, it can be, you do have to do a little bit of searching. It can be difficult to actually see where this particular product, where the grains have been sourced. And some of them are mixed, not just United States based. So let me give you some examples. So for example, on Bob's Red Mill site, on their website, in their FAQ section, they actually have a question of where do you source your grains, your beans, your seeds, and they do state that they predominantly source from the United States and Canada. And if you remember earlier, Canadians are allowed to use chlormequat. So that's kind of a hit and miss. You may grab some oats from the US, you may not. Now, Bob's Red Mill does offer organic and also conventional. So you just have to pay attention there. And they did say to email them if you have a specific product in mind to ask where it comes from. I did check my local Publix. So here in Florida, we're really common for Publix, and I actually checked their brand because I used to buy Publix oats a lot, just their conventional oats. And they too state on their website that their oats are a product of the US and Canada. So again, it's kind of a mixture. And so overall for me, I will be sure to basically be avoiding that because I don't know. I may be getting Canadian grains with chlormequat. I may not. So it's just kind of a risk that I'm not really wanting to take, especially since I'm still in my reproductive years and don't want to pass that on to my children. Now, this will actually lead to the next point, but I did check on Azure Standard. They sell the oat groats, the old-fashioned oats, and many of them said that their product was from Canada. However, these are organic oats, which leads me to the next thing that we can do, and that is to actually buy organic. Whether it is from Canada, from China, from the US, if it is labeled as organic, it cannot have chlormequat sprayed on it. It can't even have glyphosate or many of those other really bad, nasty, toxic chemicals that we want to avoid. And so I do recommend, I highly recommend, especially with oats right now, to just go ahead and buy organic. Now, I recommend if you can to do all of your grains organic just to be on the safe side. And good news with grains, especially when you buy in bulk, it's actually not that bad. Price wise, as far as organic foods, it's one of like the cheaper organic foods to get, the grains, the beans, those type of goods. And especially when you buy in bulk, that's really going to save you so much money. So places like Azure Standard, Pleasant Hill Grain, Country Life Foods, those places where you're buying 25 and 50-pound bags, that's what I suggest. So I would go ahead and get in the habit, or at least get to know your farmer. If you want to buy conventional right now, especially with your oats, I would make sure that they are US grown. Again, for now, if the EPA does allow chlormequat to be used on our US grown grains, then your only option is going to be organic. Now, to know where to buy grains, beans, and more, this is not just for oats, but your wheat, your beans, just go to my website, grainsandgrit.com/buy grains. I also have any coupon codes that you can use there as well. So the big one, especially if you're looking for oats, would be Azure Standard, Pleasant Hill Grain, and Country Life Foods. Palouse brand does not sell oats, and other farmers just don't sell oats, but they do sell other grains. Another thing, of course, is that you can find oats in your grocery store. It is one of the whole grains that you can find. Now, I've never seen oat groats, but at least old-fashioned oats and the quick oats you can find in the store. But as of right now, I would recommend to buy the organic brand or to find one that is solely US based. And that's usually where, if you just turn it around, look on the back of the label, most of them I find do put where their product is sourced from. Now, to be further extra, I actually do recommend that you buy oat groats and actually roll your oats yourself. This actually gives you the biggest amount of nutrition. You can buy organic oat groats for pretty much the same price as like your old-fashioned organic oats, your organic quick oats, so on and so forth. And by rolling your own oats, you can make old-fashioned oats, and you can even turn it into quick oats if you prefer those. And good news, I already have a video for y'all where I talk all about oats, the health benefits, why you should be consuming oats, and I teach you how to roll your oats yourself, what to look for when buying whole oat groats, how to roll your oats, how to make those quick oats. And so all you gotta do is just check out this video here to learn all about it. And I hope that this video was informative for y'all, and I'll see you next week. Bye.